Archibald. He is going to be talking about Einstein's equation to really transform healthcare in America. So you guys should be really excited about learning some really cool stuff. He hasn't really covered this subject before on the webinar, so you guys are in for a treat. And just as a reminder, our upcoming events, January 20th. If you haven't had a chance to get more details on that or register, if you're a client, make sure you're registered for that. If you haven't seen the link or you don't know where it is, reach out to me. I'll be sending out some emails this week as well on that. But if you haven't had a chance to register for that and you want to shoot me an email at info@gowellness.com, and hey, give me your phone number as well, and I can reach out to you by phone and explain, or I'll just answer your questions over email. Depends on how in depth it is. So, but overall, we're just excited to have you on the webinar this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to the one and only Regan Archibald.
Hey everybody, thanks Kid. Hey, let's everybody stand up and let's get your blood moving before we get this thing started, because we're going to be talking about time traps, bottlenecks. We're going to be talking about getting out of your own way today. So very first thing is we're going to do 5 breaths in very quickly. So inhale through your nose. All right, clap, get the energy going. All right, if you guys, I know we have some West Coasters I can see. So I want to make sure you guys are fully awake. You East Coasters, you guys should be well awake by now. But today about some of the main tools that we provide in session 3, which is Einstein's equation to disrupt and transform healthcare in America. But one of the things that you want to look at is simplifying your life. And the area of life that I find we complicate the most is in our scheduling and time. I don't know about you guys, but how many of you get to the end of the day and you say, man, I wish I had more time? One of the recent tools that was taught to me by one of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, and if you haven't heard our recent podcast with him, it's the podcast that's called How to Live to Be 156. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's very cool content, and Dan, as you know, is 72 years old. His goal is to live to be 156, but one of Dan has taught me is that you only want to schedule 3 main things per day. And so he shocks some of the entrepreneurs because he says, don't plan on doing more than 3 things in a day. And if I'm done by noon with those 3 important activities, then I go home. I go and do something that I'm very interested in. I'll prepare for the next day, and then I go explore. But I think that's a lesson that all of us could learn, because otherwise you go to bed at night and you beat yourself up because you don't feel like you've accomplished nearly as much as you'd like to. Albert Einstein, he was somebody who was the same. I mean, when he looked at his life, he always would say, well, I want to simplify as much as I can so that I can focus on what I really love doing, which is experiments and learning and imagining things and daydreaming. And he had a life that was very creative. So so let's dig in. I love this quote from Einstein. He says, everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simple. So one of the things that's not simple in our society today is our healthcare system. And if you look at our healthcare system, right now we are spending twice as much on healthcare as citizens of other developed countries. Right now in chronic disease, we're spending about 86% of our healthcare costs, and that's affecting over 50% of the adult population. So if disease, and chronic disease is what Western medicine does not shine at. My son just broke his arm last week, and that's why one of the reasons I was unable to attend the webinar. First of all, I had a Utah Acupuncture Association meeting going on, and so we're voting on some pretty high-level stuff. And then also, I was taking care of my son at the same time, so I didn't want to have 3 things going on at once. So thanks, Kate, for doing such a great job on that one. But I noticed very point point the proper use of that word, but I noticed that when I took my son into the hospital, the worst thing that happened at the very beginning is he's got a compound fracture. His ulnus was sticking completely out of his bone, so he fractured his radial bone and his ulna, and it was a horrible accident. I mean, it landed on a trampoline. He lifts his arm up. I'm about 5 feet away. He's like, "Dad, I look at my arm," and it's like, it was before the shock kit in or any pain, and so I splinted his arm up, took him to a hospital, and when I got there, I was kind of in a little bit of a panic mode, and I got to the front desk, and I said, "Am I at the right hospital? Do you guys take care of orthopedics for pediatrics?" And she said, "Oh yeah, we take care of it all the time." Very first thing that I heard when I got back into the office when they took me into a treatment room is, "Why did you not go to primary care hospital? Kids go." And I was like, "Oh, I asked them at the front desk. You guys were the closest hospital." And so, of course, after a bunch of series of, 5 different medical providers coming in asking the same questions, the resident doctor doing a bullshit exam, the nurses doing the same exam over and over again, the same questions, I'm just calculating how many office visits I'm going to get billed for that particular case. What happened at the end is we ended up putting him in an ambulance and sending him to another hospital where they proceeded to do exactly the same thing. And the very first thing they wanted to do to my son is, he's there writhing in pain. He's got an arm that I got splinted up on a foam block. And guess what they wanted to do first, right out of the gates, is they wanted to weigh him, even though I knew exactly how much he weighed, and they wanted his height. I was just cracking up. I was like, "For real, guys?" But anyway, so there is some ineffectiveness in this, but if I were to take my son to a clinic like mine or one of you guys, I love you guys, but there's nothing you could have done for him. He ended up needing surgery. We had an amazing surgeon. By the time we met the orthopedic surgeon, relieved. I saw like I saw a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, but the problem is in chronic healthcare in the United States, we're treating the same way that we treat acute disease, which, in acute disease, it's life-saving. I would not have known to put what's called a flexnel in my son's arm. That would have been something that was, totally, foreign. I didn't realize they did that. I thought it would kill the bone. I told the orthopedist, I said, "Won't that kill the bone? Having a rod down his bone marrow?" And he said, "No, no, it's less invasive than a plate, and we're getting better at this all the time." And so that's the procedure we went with because his bone was so fractured. It would not have. It might, because he's 10, so it might have fused together on its own, but went with that route. But I did see that, man, there's so much that could be done there. But if you start treating chronic disease with the same aggressive behavior that we're treating acute disease with, that's where we're over-treating, or there's way too long, and then we're offering solutions that are very drug-based. And so this is starting to break down our whole economy, and you'll see that, in the future, right now an American family of four is spending $25,728. Well, 2016, the average cost per person now, and in the future this is only going to grow, the average cost was $11,033. So we cracked the $10,000 mark. So next time somebody comes in your office, you really have to show the value. When you're doing your report of findings, they need to understand that you are the final solution. There's no one else that can treat. And especially in a country where our healthiest people are still spending $11,000 on healthcare, and what are they getting in return? They're getting a couple physicals, and maybe they get a script for an antibiotic if they catch a cold that essentially hurts them in the long run. But we have to change the landscape in America. And if we're not at the forefront of this movement, if we're not really educating our patients on the value of the services we provide, they're never going to know. They're going to stay stuck in the same trap. So I want you today to fully put it on your shoulders. Make one of your 3 assignments for the day is to think about all the value that you're providing to people in your community. Think about what your clinic does. Think about the ability you have to connect with them on an emotional level, on a spiritual level. Think about the non-invasive treatments that you're providing in nutrition, the lifestyle modifications you're making, the tests that you're running that are very impactful, the treatments. We've got a morning full of stem cell injections today, and it's really exciting to see that these people, their lives are going to be dramatically improved through the therapies that we're offering today. And there's not much risk. There's not much downside. When I took my son to the hospital, I'm constantly monitoring everything they're doing, and they almost, they would have over medicated him. And I'm like, how much morphine was that? Okay, and the last nurse, how much is the total? The last nurse gave him four mLs, and you want to do 8 more. What's the limit that he can tolerate? And oh yeah, wow, we're right at the limit. And anyway, I had to be so cautious with everything they were doing. They come to a clinic like ours, and it's relaxing, it's safe, it's non-invasive. So what you've created is beautiful, and I know a lot of you have worked very hard at creating this. You've got one of the most innovative and cutting-edge clinics out there, but we have to get educating, and we have to get better at structuring our time. One of the big things that I've talked about at the last event, and you'll hear me continue to talk about, is this company called Monsanto, who's being bought out by Bayer. And many of you know the history of Bayer. Bayer, if you look at it, originally Bayer was a company that made dye for cottons. And it was great. They were in Germany. And then they got in, because they already had access to chemicals, they decided, which is awesome, right? I got all these toxic chemicals, let's make medicine. And so what happened is they hooked up with a company called IG Farben, and they started using more of their patented formulations to create drugs and pharmaceuticals. And then they wanted access to other countries, or other areas. They wanted access to their chemicals so they could make more drugs and dominate. World domination was their overall goal. And even if you look at the Rockefellers from America, they were joining forces with IG Farben and Bayer way back before World War II. And as you know, IG Farben and Bayer were some of the early funders of Nazi Germany, of Hitler's, of all his propaganda. A lot of the money was backed. The majority of the money was backed by IG Farben and Bayer. And so now we've got this other monstrosity called Monsanto. The majority of the crops in our country, and in Brazil they've done the same thing, and they want to, they've wanted to have world domination too. But now what they're doing is Monsanto is buying out Bayer, and so Bayer, instead of being mostly like 95% healthcare, Bayer is now going to be 50% pesticides, herbicides, chemicals, and 50% healthcare. So kind of interesting. This largest corporations on the planet, and if anyone has $66 billion, please, I know several of you on this webinar do, but please go buy out Monsanto's from Bayer for offer 67 or something. So here's what we want to do. Ultimately, our goal is we want to link people up. We want to create better relationships so that we can overcome all of the obstacles that we're faced with when it comes to healthcare in our country. Because one thing that I've found is I love inspiring other practitioners to do better. I love going into your clinics. This is when I spent a day in Hollywood, is where Jones Clinic was at the time. And I went there and spent the day with these fine acupuncturists, trained them on things, got them motivated. I was able to talk to their patients. I was able to fine-tune their systems. I trained their front desk. I love doing that because I know it's making a bigger impact on the entire health of the population. I realize I'm just one individual in this large world, but I also I can see that if I can make an impact, you can make a bigger impact. And so the very first place I want to start with this today is by talking about what formulas we can learn from Einstein and put into our own lives. Because what you're going to find coming up next year is we've got a brand new website. It's called einsteinsmedicine.com. And this website is still in construction, so it's a couple months out. But this is where we're going to be driving a lot of the new innovations, because I feel like functional medicine is an overused term. Functional medicine may be, it's somewhat, it's not reflective of everything that we do. I feel like traditional Chinese medicine is also not completely adequate or reflective of everything we do. Biohacking, that's a lot of the stuff that we talk about and we do, but once again, it's not reflective of the whole. Neither is regenerative medicine. So I'm just calling it Einstein's medicine because what that means is, Einstein, we're still trying to catch up with what he knew. I mean, when Einstein talks about the particle theory and patterns and waves and the quantum world, I mean, there's so much of that we just have not tapped into or accessed. But that's the part that I believe we can really push things forward. And so Einstein's medicine will be the umbrella that bridges all of those. So for those of you who are looking for continuing education courses, we've got a lot of new ones coming up next year for acupuncturists, chiropractors. We have joined forces with the California Chiropractic Association, and so I'm now their primary speaker honor because I think that is from what they told me anyway. They could have just been stroking my ego, but it's the largest acupuncture association or chiropractic association in the country. And they rarely invite anyone who is not an acupuncture or not a chiropractor or a lawyer to speak at their events. So we had the last event was in San Francisco, 1st of December, and that went off great. And so we'll be linking up with these guys. So Einstein's Medicine will be that portal that will bring people through. Go Wellness is actually going to be a portal where, for those of you who are clients, we're going to start funneling new patients to you. We're going to be doing complete nationwide outreach so that you'll have patients who maybe they'll listen to my podcast, they'll read my book, they'll want to work with a practitioner, and then we'll send them that way. Or maybe you'll be working with somebody like, Dr. Jones, you'll be working with a patient in your office in the Bay Area, and they'll be like, mother lives in Utah, and you'll send them to me. And so Go Wellness will be kind of that link there. And then, of course, on Go Wellness, we'll still have our provider side, the healthcare entrepreneur program, and then we'll have the acupuncture blueprint. I can't wait for the new things we have coming up in 2017 because I asked myself the question, how can I provide the most value to the healthcare providers who we work with in Go Wellness? And the biggest thing that I thought is I said, the best thing I could do for my clients, beyond just training them on, clinically how to get 10 times better results, how to think bigger, how to innovate, but the biggest thing that I could do is actually send patients to your clinic who are ready to go. They come and they got their credit card out. They want to sign up for whatever program you're offering. And so that's something that we'll be creating, and I know it's not going to be complete next year. This is a 25-year project. It will be effective next year, but then it's just going to be something that builds and builds and builds, and it's going to be very powerful. So I'm very excited about that. Kay, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Maybe his computer's not working, or anyone else, if you have questions, I'm happy to.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, my computer's been interesting this morning, so it's been a little choppy. But no, I don't have anything to add. I'm really excited to get that up and rocking for everyone, though.
Okay, cool. And my audio has been pretty choppy, it sounds like. How is it now, Cade?
Much better.
Okay. Sorry, it's not sure what it is. All right, so let's jump into the training for today. So Einstein's formula. Biggest thing we have to do is start looking at your days, because if you could design a perfect day, what would it look like? How would it feel? What would the activities be? You want to start thinking about, okay, creating a really amazing present moment and a really amazing future. And the way that you can start creating a bigger future is to think bigger, think better, think brilliantly, and then learning is your only constant. So I'm going to go through a couple of Einstein's traits real quick here, and then you guys will be able to see kind of who he was, and maybe we can model our lives and our practices a little bit about after Einstein. So he was rebellious in his own peaceful way. He said, a society's competitive advantage will not come from how well its schools teach the multiplication and periodic table, but from how well they stimulate imagination and creativity. Now, I think many of us on this webinar, maybe we weren't the best students in school. Maybe it wasn't really, we just got through it because we saw it to be a means to an end. And maybe we are those who see that they're in thinking outside of the box, and that was certainly Einstein. I mean, a lot of his equations. I mean, theory of relativity. I think that took him almost 9 years before the scientists were finally able to, conclude that his theory was correct. Um, One thing Einstein valued imagination over knowledge. He says, I'm not enough of an artist to draw freely on my imagination. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. And I've seen this dramatically. Dr. Lawrence just did a training with a neurologist on new applications for stem cells for neurological conditions, and it rocked his brain. I mean, he came back just on fire, and I was on fire because now we're using mannitol so we can get the stem cells through the blood-brain barrier, and we're actually treating patients who have dementia, Alzheimer's. We treated a patient for macular degeneration, Parkinson's disease, MS, all those diseases of the brain we're now able to treat. So um, Fortran wasn't afraid to fail. Failure and deprivation are the best educators and purifiers. If everything was just handed over to you, and a lot of us, we've had times in our practice where it's just like, wow, it almost felt easy. It was like too easy. And that's great. It's really nice when you can start cruising, but really as you're building up your practice, you're going to have setbacks, and what you want to look at is the very obstacle, the very setback, the thing that is bothering you the most is your biggest opportunity. And if you don't believe me, I'd recommend reading a book, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. It's an amazing read. He's a great guy. His new book, The Ego is the Enemy, is another fascinating read. So read his stuff. Growth Hacker is another book that he wrote. Tend to like his stuff, obviously, but don't be afraid to fail and learn from your failure. Don't repeat the same mistakes over and over again, which we're getting into the time training here, and many of us, we just set up our days exactly the same. We want a different result, and what happens is we don't get a different result. So fifth trait Einstein created was boundaries, so he could focus on what he loved doing. He believed try not to be a man of success, but rather to become a man of value. I mean, some of the boundaries he created is he moved into a lake house, and I believe that was in California. He wanted to get away from all the distractions of society so he could focus on his work. He stopped wearing socks. He said, I'm of the age where I can choose to wear socks or not. And he would cook his food in the same pan so it would save time. I mean, he was very passionate about what he was doing. Einstein was also, obviously he was the person who helped us understand most of all that energy and matter are two of the same types changeable. They're different forms of the same thing. And you can see in his Eazy-E hat, Einstein obviously was a big fan of rappers. I think he liked Dr. Dre, Eazy-E. He's kind of more of the West Coast rapper. No, I'm joking, but he big fan of music. I believe I can't remember what instrument he played. The violin is what comes to mind, but he also loved taking his rowboat out on the lake. So let's jump into his ways of thinking about time. So one of your most liberating gifts, one of the most liberating gifts you can give yourself is to be creative with your thinking process and get rid of limitations. So the limitation, not enough time. How many of you feel like you don't have enough time to accomplish everything you want to accomplish? Okay, a lot of you do. And then, what I would say is we'll write down the most successful thing to get to yourself to the place you are now. All of you on this webinar, I can't see all of your names, but you guys are very, very successful people. And just the fact that you got through school, the fact that you're living, you're breathing, you're competing in this crazy world that changes all the time is amazing. So take a minute and thank yourself and really feel some deep appreciation for how far you've come, because we've all had trials, we've all had experiences that we don't wish to repeat. And so the only way we can ever, create a different experience. We can't ever avoid pain and failure and hard times, but man, we certainly don't have to repeat it, because if you write down all the successful things you did that got yourself to where you are now, you probably will say, man, I actually accomplished a whole bunch, and I don't even realize that because I don't think about it. All we're thinking about is those negative things. So yeah, you overcame. Think about what it took to start your practice and to be someone who's highly talented. Think about what you're doing in the future. So very first thing is get really good at performing the jobs you love to do. So a lot of us have taken the Colby Profile. We recently did an entire training on the Colby Profile with my office, and it was amazing. We actually just reorganized a bunch of little tweaks, and we found with the Colby Profile, that's Kolbe, that's Kathy Colby is the inventor of this. But by understanding the way that your body functions, the way that you'd like to tackle projects, and the way that you act in the world, the Colby Profile can give you some very good tools. It's a $49 test. You cannot afford not to do it. So the time trick number one is find those jobs that you need to stop doing and let someone else do it. And that could be, one of the first things I did is handing over my accounting, handing over some of the marketing duties, and then the biggest one was handing over the acupuncture post. Many of you are very talented janitors, and so you may want to hand that over. You may be a good doctor, so maybe that's all you want to do. I just spoke to a very talented nurse practitioner on the phone yesterday, and Maggie is her name, and she said, "Yeah, I love being a doctor. I love taking care of patients. I don't like running a business. I don't like running my practice, and I need help with that because it's taking up the majority of my time, where I'd rather be focusing on patients." So some of you like to be CEO. Some of you just would love to run and be the entrepreneur of your clinic. So whatever your strengths are, you want to look at those. But the Colby Profile, what it will do is it will actually give you a category as far as what position or kind of what role you fitted best. And so mine, I'm a quick start, so very innovator. That's my strongest. And then my second is a fact finder. So I'm a 4 at a fact finder, a 9 on quick start. And so I'm an entrepreneur. That's the category they put me in. And obviously I created a program, Healthcare Entrepreneurs. I believe that entrepreneurs are the people that can change healthcare in America. It's not going to come from a government official. It's not going to come from votes. It's not going to come from insurance companies. It's not even going to come from the American people, because they don't know the other side. They're only getting half the story. For 100 years, they've gotten half the story, which is allopathic medicine, which is great. But the other half, they've only got a little fraction of it. And most of that has been quackery or downplaying it all. So you want to look at what your strengths are, get your Colby Profile, and realize that you have just a finite amount of energy to do of what your unique abilities are. So you really want to focus on those. Okay, time trick number 2 is give yourself 100 quarters to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And so this allows you to dwell in the present more. When I say that, one of the big things, Go Wellness, one of the coolest pieces of value that we're going to be adding is directing patients into your clinics, and doing a lot of the marketing for you. Is that value, it's going to happen, but it's not going to come overnight, because of course anybody can get a patient to call you, to show up for an event or into your office, and they can do that several times, and you can repeat that process. But the real goal is, I would rather get 3 really good people into your clinic once a month, and all 3 of them are ready to close on a care plan. I mean, that would be game-changing for you. And then if we can do it with 3 patients, then maybe we can build enough relationships where it's 10, and then we move up to 25, and then 50, and then that's really how we can start transforming healthcare in America. It's not by, well, let's get a membership-based program and get a bunch of people signed up for a very cheap membership. I heard one doctor talking about this $18 a month membership fee, and then they could work with health coaches, and I was like, well, they're not going to see any value in that. We can't just focus on getting lazy and thinking easiest way out. The only way is to create relationships, and with technology we can create relationships with people all around the world. Like none of us on this webinar are in the same room, but yet we're still here together. So 20 to be your new mantra. So think about 5 projects that you're most excited to complete in the next 90 days and write those down. This is going to be a key element because it focuses you to narrow your attention onto these 5 things. And then anytime you focus your attention on these, that's when you start to change the game. One of my early mentors, that's where he talked about money was just attention units. So the more you put your attention units on the processes and projects that will make you more money, then you'll have more money as the outcome. If you put your attention on adding more value, that's what I would say is even more important than the money. The financial aspect is add more value to whatever you're doing. Add some nice touches. You know, one thing that we're doing for Christmas is we're finding healthcare providers, and we're going to be offering them stress relieving treatment so they can come in and get acupuncture at any of our locations at East West. And then we'll also give them a nice gift basket, you know, maybe some movie tickets. We'll give them a copy of my book, Your Health Transformation. They'll also have in there probably like some bulletproof products of some type. And then we're going to create better ability to have a relationship, a referral network, because they've come in, they had a great experience, we added value first, and then the law of reciprocity will say, well, yeah, they're going to feel obligated to refer to us, and not that we want to have strings attached when we're giving, but at the same time, we want to create more strategic relationships. So that's one of my projects, for example, in the next 90 days. What are yours? Hopefully you guys are taking notes and writing these things down. Okay, number 3, fact versus fiction. Now this is one of the hardest things to do on your own, but we actually have, I mean, I just had to do this with my CFO, had to do it with my marketing director when it came to what are we spending and how much and where is the money going. And so, you know, we had one story from one person, I got another story from another person, and then I had a third story come in, and then finally what we did is we just looked at actual and what's fiction, where were assumptions made, and it was shocking how many assumptions were made. And so it was to the tune of $17,000 once everything was said and done, just learning this fictional accounts of things that weren't actually happening. So this is going to be one of the most important things you can do for saving yourself lots of time. You guys probably don't see how that relates to time, but I tell you what, if I don't do fact versus fiction a lot with all the team members, or if I don't do fact versus fiction with my patients, I mean, think about your patients. They can tell you they're doing great, 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 and you're like, are you? Because your range of motion is the same. What's your pain levels at? Well, it's still at an 8. Okay, that's what we started at. Let me run labs. Oh, nothing's changed. So, wow, you know, we got sucked up in this fictional idea that you're doing better just because you tell me you're doing better, but you're really not. So 5 ways that you're writing fiction and assumptions in your practice, and get rid of those. Just stick to the facts, and it will save so much energy, I promise. Some of you are saying, wow, well, you believe in imagination and creativity, Regan. That's pretty linear. Well, I'm trying to save you time, and to run a business, ultimately you have to be able to look at facts, and you have to know the facts. You have to know the stats. You have to know what your business is doing, where it's going, what the trends look like. And you can't do that if you have fiction to base it off of. And fiction is people's emotional story. Of course, business at the end of the day, it's an intuitive thing. You have to have this emotional liberation with it. It's got to provide that. I'm not saying you take out emotion in business, but what I'm saying is a lot of people's emotions will skew the information and data that they're giving you, and then your ability to make decisions is going to be limited. So fact versus fiction. All right. Right. Did Einstein really have a smartphone? I think he had one in his brain. Okay. Next time trick, time and ego. So think about this. You have more than enough time to accomplish everything you could possibly dream of. So just say that to yourself a few times. You have more than enough time to accomplish everything you could possibly dream of. Everything. That is powerful. So the first thing you have to do is get out of your way, because when you start seeing time as a scarce resource that you will not ever be able to confront. You're never going to get out of this current present situation that you're in right now. There's no way you could build something from the ground up. You know, if we were to drop you off at planet Mars and Elon Musk has yet to colonize it, what are you going to do there? You know, let's say you have internet, you have Wi-Fi, you have all the food that you need. What are you going to do? You know, so you have to think about, wow, well, what is going on in my current life that's the most limiting thing, and a lot of it is scarcity. It's scarcity around money, it's scarcity around your ability to confront, it's scarcity around your talents as a provider. You may think, well, I'm not ready to take on stem cells. I don't know enough about it, or I'm not ready to jump into ordering labs for this patient. I just want to do acupuncture because I don't really feel comfortable yet. I'm just little. You know, those things are going to get in your way. So step away from your ego and see that there's abundance of time. We're all gifted with the same amount of time. That's the irony, is all of us have 24/7, right? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there's a really cool movie that I just saw with my son, the same son who had the compound fracture. It's called Arrival, and it's pretty interesting how these aliens, these tetrapod aliens, show people how they perceive time based on their language. So maybe see it. It will show that there's like this huge abundance. It taught her how to tap into the future. So time and ego. Time trick number 5. Take control of your time by taking control of your day. So how many of you have a morning ritual? I think that's one of the most powerful things you can do. You have a nightly ritual and you have a morning ritual. All the most amazing people of all times, they would focus on their life, and they would actually journal about it. They would write about it. They'd have goals. They would spend a few minutes every day in reflection. And I know a lot of us, our reflection is a Facebook feed. And we're like, oh, that was cute. Look at those animals. Or, you know, you want to go read your fictional novel, but you're not getting real about being reflective on your own life. Now, my dad taught me this at a very early age. I mean, every Sunday we'd sit down, we'd make goals, and then he'd kind of ask me about the goals throughout the week. And it was actually this super cool process. And I've taken it into my adult life. Of course, I've modified it quite a bit, but you know, I like to think about every morning. I do my mindset morning. I think about what I want to accomplish, who I'm about, what I'm here for, how I can make the biggest impact, the meaningful relationships. I spend lots of time on gratitude. I ask myself lots of the same questions. You know, how can I be a better person? How can I learn faster? How can I enhance my overall health? How can I enhance my brain function? How can I project myself into the future and see the future trends so that we can navigate this cool project that we're working on? You know, all those things have to start by you taking control of your day. So one of the quotes, it says, "The man who regards his own life and that of his fellow creatures as meaningless is not merely uncomfortable, but almost disqualified for life." So your biggest time trick, the number 5 time trick, is start adding more meaningfulness to your life. Start seeing how beautiful life really is. It's fragile. It can go away at any time. So we need to start appreciating it just a little bit more. All right, time trick number 6, removing can't. Now, I'm not saying you just say yes to everything and roll over, but when you see a big project, like, you know, when I brought it up to Kate, I said, hey, Kate, I want to create the best marketing platform that funnels amazing new patients into our clients' offices. And this is what we're going to be working on in 2017. Kate didn't say, we can't do that. Nobody knows how to do that. We've tried to hire the best marketers on the planet. What we found is we just spent a lot of money. And so what we want to do is it's going to be a system that allows for a relationship to be built. And this is done through technology. It's all automated. But there is no can't. Kate and I just spent about an hour and a half on the phone just going through strategy, going through obstacles, figuring out the first step, because the very hardest thing is just getting started, right? And then knowing when we've actually accomplished what we're seeking to accomplish. But the biggest thing is we remove the word can't. And I believe a lot of you on this webinar, you're going to profit significantly through this concept. And then what we have to do is we have to train up everybody so that what we're promising that we're going to deliver to that person when they show up at your office is actually being delivered. So there will be some accountability too, but that'll be beautiful. So time trick number 6, you think that you can't start a program because you don't have all the answers, or because you're a good scientist, you need more data. You know, a lot of you have not even sold a program yet, or maybe you haven't sold one in the last week or month. Get on that. Put all of the services that you do together that make what you offer so unique, and it doesn't matter what it is, but bundle that into a single fee and get your program out there. That's going to be the way you remove the can't. All right, time trick number 7 is deciding that you will make decisions right now, not later. It's called decision-making fatigue, and all of us have a certain amount of dopamine in our brains. Some of us, our receptor sites are more sensitive to dopamine than others, and there's ways of enhancing this. Using herbs like kanna or bacopa can be very helpful for your neurotransmitter sensitivity and receptivity. And then, obviously using like L-tyrosine, an amino acid, some of the precursors, using aniracetam and choline is great for your dopamine. But the most powerful thing, no matter what you do on nootropics level, the biggest thing you need to do is just start making decisions right now. So decide, do we want to grow? Yes. How are we going to do it? Am I going to pout about things not working out the way we wanted it to? Or am I going to actually stand up and do something different? And when you make a fast decision, not being rash, some decisions just need to be where I'm going to make this decision once I have more data, and that's fine. But you have to be willing to gather the data and do what you need to make the right decision. But some of you are so afraid to jump, you never make the decision. And so you're just sitting there on the diving board, so afraid you have this massive rush ahead of you where you just jump and you land in water and you'll be fine, but you can't give up that chiropractic adjustment to somebody else. You can't train somebody to do something because they won't do it as good as you do. You can't make the decision to let someone else run the financial department in your organization because you feel like they're going to mess it up, and that's one of the decisions that holds you back. So make a decision and make a decision fast. And if you don't like taking risks, then make a decision that you're going to have a process in place that will allow you, that will possible decision making possible. So yes, if you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or objects. Now, if you look at Einstein, I think one of the reasons he said that is because he had a lot of personal turmoil. I mean, in his relationships, he went through a divorce. He married his first cousin. I know some of you think that's weird, but Kate and I, our grandparents are married, so it's not that weird. But the real thing is, tie it to something that you have control over. As I believe, the lesson to be learned here. And you guys have control over the way you treat people around you, your attitude, your general happiness. I mean, just because you're not hitting all the goals you want doesn't mean you can't have a happy life, but it gives you something bigger to strive for, something bigger to look at. So the final time trick is removing bottlenecks. Now, this is a time trick that relates to systems. Systems are the solution, and so if you have bottlenecks in your process and your flow, that will be one of the biggest things that thwart your growth. So maybe a bottleneck could be like, well, I do really great. I planned this marketing event for the next 3 weeks, and you have this planned, and you're busting in. You're getting lots of new patients in your door, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, we don't have a marketing event. We're out of new patients. Let me create it again. So it's a bottleneck for having consistent and consecutive marketing events. That's a big bottleneck that I see for a lot of you. Another big bottleneck is you don't plan your schedule out far enough in advance. Last minute to prepare for that lecture that you promised to give, or that assignment that you told your staff you'd get on, or you don't you have bottlenecks because you don't implement. You have these ideas of putting new services into your clinic, but then you don't have the kits there, or you don't even write up your wellness programs, or you're not even clear on what you're selling when you sit down with the patient because you haven't taken the time to write it out. Now, one of our clients recently, he's in Price, Utah, which is a tiny town. It shrinks in population every single day, I think, and it's in the middle of Utah. It's kind of down by Moab. But he just, he went out and he's been a client for about a month, and he sat down with a couple of husband and wife with going through a report of findings, talking about a wellness program, and he ended up getting a check for 13 or 14, just right there, his very first try at it. But he spent the time, he prepared, he got his wellness programs written up, he's followed all the assignments, and then he was shocked. He's like, oh, it works. And so I hope you guys are experiencing that same thing. But the biggest thing is remove the bottlenecks, which is usually you haven't created a system, you haven't created clarity around what you're trying to accomplish. So hope this has been helpful. Um, I think that if you go back through this, there's a lot of wisdom in what Einstein shared, and a lot of wisdom that you can glean from really taking more control over your time and having a different relationship with it. Any questions anyone has, I'm happy to answer it, but I just want to make sure that you guys get all set up for the next year. We're going to be blasting out of the gates hard in January, so can't wait to see you guys at Marina Del Rey. January 20th is going to be our structural alignment acupuncture. The 21st and 22nd is going to be the Tao of the Healthcare Entrepreneur. We'll have our functional medicine boot camp on Saturday. Cade went through the whole structure last week with you. Also delivering, we're waiting to hear back from all of you on the report of findings mastery. I'll spend 8 hours. We're going to put you in a room and you're going to master every single step of the 17 steps of the report of findings, and this will transform your life. It will transform your experience when you talk to patients about money. We'll get rid of your psychological barriers around it. Massively transformative. So if you have not signed up for this, you need to get signed up as quickly as possible. This module, we're offering a $2,000 discount if you come to Utah and do it, and a $1,000 discount if you come to LA, if you sign up by the 23rd. And we broke it up into payments, so it's very affordable. Very, very affordable. I mean, especially
And if
compared
you
to
come to Utah, you also get a ski pass.
a ski pass. Yes, but yeah, you'll be able to pay for this event completely within the first, clinic. So it's a no-brainer. So get signed up.
You cut off right there. What did you say?
Oh, sorry. It's a no-brainer. You'll pay for this entire training module in the first 15 minutes when you show back up at your office, and then you'll also have permanent access to all the online materials that we've created around this, so that you can be a better at sales. Because unfortunately, that's where the medical profession struggles the most. And Institute of Functional Medicine, in their survey, that's where they found that people struggle the most. So tell your friends about it too. We're not just limiting it to Go Wellness clients. All right, do you have anything else, Kate?
I don't. That was awesome.
I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Love you guys.
Have an awesome day. Reagan, you still there?